As the day got later and later, and our beers refilled themselves a few times, my guest, the kind of guy who always has a welcome insight, let me keep asking him questions about his profession. Ernie likes to talk about anything and everything, but he's a brewer. So in part 1, we covered the pitch rates of yeast, protein scavenging, lactobacillus, and enzyme kinetics, the deep science behind brewing great beer. In part 2, we jump into the craft beer community, the craft beer economy, and what it's like living in an ultra-connected world. But first, take a look at this, the Brewer's Board, which Ernie lovingly jokes that he wasn't given the opportunity to approve. Composed of the essential meats, pancetta, salami, andouille sausage. The cheeses, a classic blue cheese, an aged sharp cheddar, and a creamy and lightly tangy goat cheese. Complemented by a local honey, GRBC's specially made cowboy candied jalapenos, a house mustard, and a unique pretzel crostini. And it's pretty damn tasty, I can tell you. I'm Jay Mays, and this is Seared. Amazing food, remarkable people. That's what you see on Untapped and fucking YouTube comments. I love you guys for watching. I hate the trolls. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm a happy person.
Right.
Internet trolls drive me bonkers.
Yeah. It's you have to wonder, like, well, what is your motivation for when you do this stuff and when you say it, you know? And it's sad because it's sometimes they're unhappy or just angry people that, like,
yeah, and they're the few, right? It's not most people,
right?
Like, it's a very limited, small populace, but they're equally vocal and in fact amplified by yeah. How about we crush a little more of this, and we get that Brewer's Board.
All right.
I think we nailed the. What do we have here?
All right, this is Light Side of the Sun.
Ooh.
This is also a really good crushable beer, but this is a little bit hoppier, so it's kind of, we call it a session pale, but actually, oddly enough, going back to Untapped, this is one of the comments that made me laugh my ass off. Because some guy is like, I don't know who's sessioning on this shit, but like if you're sessioning on a 5.7% beer, like something's off.
It's 5.7%.
Yeah, so I
pretty hoppy.
Yeah, not really super hoppy in terms of bitterness, more flavor. You know.
All right.
So this is a fun one because it's got hot flavor, but it's chill beer.
I'd say that's crushable.
Yeah, but I laugh when somebody said that. I'm like, fair point.
Yeah. So we got the Brewer's Board.
Could be wrong. And for the fact of the matter, we never approved of this damn board. Nobody ever asked us anything about this.
They just
made this.
They just made this fucking
No, it preceded us being here. I actually approve of it. I think it's pretty badass.
Dude, I'm gonna try some things on here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. It's meat, cheese on the board with bread.
Yeah.
I mean, we're out here living.
No. Absolutely. I'm gonna do some of these jalapenos too.
And you got all these crostinis.
Do you like the bread?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when I am really, really hungry and we don't have time to eat, I will go pirate crostinis. They'll just look at me sideways like I just grab some, like, sorry, I was trying to eat some crostinis. You know, they make a lot of bacon here, so they also have
just grab a strip.
There's always routinely like big trays of bacon back there, and whenever they burn it, I can smell it in the brewery, and I know when they burn the bacon, and I'll go over there and be like, yes.
I'm gonna have some of that right now.
Yeah, because one, I know I'm like, well, first off, you're not gonna end up using it because it's burnt, and it's also burnt bacon is fucking good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they always laugh because there's a certain way like our ductings run, and I can smell sometimes when they do things in the kitchen, especially when they burn things. And I can always tell when they burn the bacon. Strolling in there like, yeah.
They see you walk in, they know.
Oh yeah, they do.
You're here for a purpose.
They all just laugh. I'm like the house seagull.
It's like,
been waiting for you to fuck something up all day.
It's the fucking seagulls that are the most opportunistic.
Mm-hmm. Well, seagull has to kind of fly around and evaluate things,
check things out.
Raccoon just goes for it.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. I'm gonna try some of this.
Yeah, when I worked back at the house, we'd always laugh because, man, when you fuck up a ticket, and you put up in the window and to be obviously dead.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
yeah. There's so much banking in terms of the restaurant industry and how people experience it.
Yeah.
There's so much banking on so few that are widely underappreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked back at the house in a fair amount of restaurants, and those dudes are they're crazy. They're hard-working people. Yeah, the people that work in the kitchens that keep it going, man.
They keep it going.
There's a tremendous amount of underappreciation for what they do, and there's a certain type of mentality that it takes to work in the kitchen and rock out in the kitchen, and there's a certain amount of, like, I guess maybe sort of my twisted mentality on things that I think is derived from spending a lot of time working in the back of the house with a lot of people, because you work with these dudes day in and day out, and not all, I shouldn't say that I said dudes because this is not fair to.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But the people that I work with in the kitchens, and it takes a different kind of mentality, and you're working with these people and you are getting absolutely just fired on, and a couple of weeks ago, went back in the kitchen. It was a Friday night.
Yeah.
These guys had that whole rail was just full.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, this is your Friday. And they were just getting crushed back there. And I posted on Instagram, like, give these guys some thanks. And actually, incidentally, it was one of the Instagram posts that we got so many likes on. I'm like, thank you. At least
there's recognition for this shit.
Yeah, and these guys, man, they crush it out, and they do such a good job. But that I miss that sometimes because when we'd work on the kitchen line, we would just crank music, and we would literally just our sense of humor was so warped because you're just getting fired on for hours and hours, and you're just crushing out these tickets. So it's like you got to find humor in just weird shit, just funny conversations and whatnot. And it was just like, it's definitely a different thing than work in front of the house, which I spent a lot of time working in front of the house too, and it's there's funny little nuances that are different between the two.
I like the personalities I think you see at back of house.
Yeah. Because like the in back of the house you'll see people that are they don't have to church it up for anybody and I guess put on a facade or anything. It's like, well, take it or leave it. This is who I am. This is what I do. And there's that kind of gruffness and that kind of just
getting it done.
Yeah, just get out there and rock it. And in front of the house they crush out in a different way, but they are very adept at they're gonna smile and keeping things very cool, but in a way different way, And there's a different art to it, and it's wild because front of the house people, they're able to take a different sort of like almost psychological abuse.
That's a good point. Yeah, actually, it's not.
Let's take a moment to appreciate the two sides of every restaurant and pub: the front of house and the back of house. The front of house, those faces that we as patrons see every single meal. Managers, waiters, sommeliers, bartenders, servers, hosts, bussers. If they're good, they can make your experience unique and worthwhile. The back of house is captained by the often unthanked roles, your chefs, cooks, and dishwashers. It's a ruthlessly hot bastion of fast-paced production. To all of you, thank you. Thank you from me, thank you from Seared, and thank you from every single guest we've had on Seared. You make the simple experience of eating, just eating, better for all of us. experiences. Do you consider yourself front of house or back of house?
Man, it's really back of the house. But in a lot of ways, a lot of what I do too. When we go to Guild Fest and we things like this. And
you're a face.
In a lot of ways, I'm that. But in all the years that I worked in restaurants, I think like one of the things that is wild is that a lot of these people are working here, but nobody is really like, okay, I'm going to work here as a career.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's why you have so many of these people that are extremely talented and that are
moving around
and that have such complex and dynamic personalities working in this industry, because this is sort of a stepping stone for a lot of people. A lot of people will bartend, they'll serve to get their way through college, or on their way to finding different jobs or different things. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about working in this industry for so long is that I've been exposed to so many amazing and talented people that where else would I work with this kind of people? And it's such a transient workspace, because you have a lot of people coming and going, and a lot of them are, they're just here as a stepping stone to doing something, way different,
something bigger,
and like a lot of these guys and gals that work here, they're so talented, and they're, some of these people are artists, and they're working to be nurses and all this cool stuff, and it's like, and it's fun to be able to have the opportunity, I guess, to work with these people when they're sort of in that growth phase or that transitionary phase, where you get to experience them as they're moving through that before they become a nurse or before they become
that's a good point.
A salesperson or a well recognized and established artist and all that stuff. It's fun to be able to work with them in a context where that doesn't exist yet. We're just all people that are just crushing it out on a Friday night.
Together. To get this done for these people who have already moved through the service industry in a lot of cases.
And that's and I think that's actually made it in a way sometimes difficult for me to sort of conceive of working in other industries because, for instance, when I got done with my degree at State, I was working in doing an internship in a lab, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this shit. And
lab coat, like you have the white on.
And these people are brilliant, in a factual sense, and doing amazing work. It was basically, so what we were doing in this lab was using algae to be able to produce biofuels. So what they were trying to do in this lab was trying to figure out how these algae can make the most fats possible, so you can make biofuels out of it. Noble effort, noble cause, everything about it was wonderful. But from being in this industry for so long and working with all these really dynamic and interesting people, like crazy people, sane people, just the whole wide gamut, and going into that side of things, which at that point I was pretty well formed. I think when I finished my degree, I was like 29. So it was like it was wild. So I'm like, I don't know how long I can work in this industry, because these are not my people. I'm used to working with people they're a little bit more wild, a little bit more crass, a little bit more crude, a little bit much more just take me on how I am, and I was in this lab scenario where everybody's very polished and very formal and
that's a good point.
Very focused, and I was like, I wish I would have done this internship before I'd gotten this deep into this degree, but even still, I like we were saying before, I wholeheartedly believe that everything that I learned in the process of getting my degree plays a huge part in what I do now.
I was going to say, you're in a lot of ways you're an applied scientist, right? You're not doing theory anymore. You're also not doing lab-specific cultures or testing, but you are using your knowledge to create.
Because before, what I was doing when I was doing my internship, I was hanging out in a flow hood. I was picking algae cultures off a fucking auger plate and taking them, throwing them into a 96 well plate, shaking it down, and then basically throwing them, letting them grow, and then centrifuging them down, extracting it, using a detergent to break them down, and then screening them for fat content.
Ultimately, it didn't have a result, right? You weren't drinking your result after 3 weeks. You were doing a study that might have a tangible result, but it's ultimately not something practical that you're going to use or drink.
Yeah, and and I think that's a huge part of, I guess, maybe the skill in being in a profession like that, or just the skill set, because patience, that kind of patience and that kind of willingness to do something that tedious and involved for that long without any directly tangible results. That's also
that's a different skill.
It's a crazy skill in itself, because I need much more immediate gratification than that.
I need my 3-week gratification.
Yeah, but somebody's got to do wonderful stuff like that.
Give it to me,
and somebody's got to do wonderful stuff like that. And hats off for them for doing that, because
we're a science
so
literate
brilliant.
show. We want to advocate for science. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to the personality and the application of science, it's this sort of thing that's going to provide the right medium for creation for some people, like yourself, and being in the lab coat and working specific hours and coming up with results that are published but might not have an effect for 20 years, that's for other people.
Yeah, and I think right now, with what I do here, is I think it's actually a really wonderful fusion of being able to bring together, the creative part of my brain, and then also the part that loves science and loves, a lot of that principle-based stuff, and because there's a huge part of me that I love music, I love art, I love that creativity, I love all the beautiful things that can just come out of humans as an expression. But then there's that part of me that I love science, I love the whys, I love the hows. And one of the wonderful things about brewing is that it's able to sort of provide one of very few aspects, or one of very few, I guess, careers and outputs where you can sort of find a way to bridge the gap between the two, which is really, really rare, because, we can take a lot of creativity in what we're doing and a lot of love, and be able to do things that are extremely expressive in their own way, but then also do things that are also an expression and manifestation of a lot of the scientific knowledge and that kind of aspect of things. So, I think that's a really, really rare opportunity for some, people like me that got those fighting parts of your brain that, I love science, but man, I also, love art. I love weird shit.
Yeah. Hey, if this is the result of science and art coming together, then cheers to that. Yeah. Great answer to that question, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. To me, there's a lot there to dissect, but you put it together pretty succinctly.
Good.
What'd you think of the Brewers Board?
Oh, it's awesome. We love this thing.
Yeah.
I always like to make jokes about it. The fact that we never approved of this goddamn thing. PB&J burger.
Yeah, take a look at this.
We meet at last.
I'm excited for this.
Good. I hope you are.
Yeah.
This is one of those things when they first put it on the menu. One of our would be the former ringleader of Barfly, friend and mentor. I refer him to as Dad. I always call him Dad.
Is that Jake?
No, my friend Gary.
Oh, Gary. Okay.
Yeah, he's like he was one of the guys that, so when we first opened Hopcat, he was super involved, and he was he was what we call the ringleader. So he had a huge part in a lot of the recipe development for a lot of the stuff that we have, and I worked underneath him for a long time, and I think this was one of the things that he may have conceived of, but he told me they're going to make a peanut butter and jelly burger. I was like, that's fucking gross. Straight up, that's nasty.
We're gonna test this like scientists.
And he's like, no, just wait till you try it. Just wait till you try it. I'm like, okay,
we're gonna make this happen.
And and I hope you're watching this right now, Gary, and I hope you're really proud, because a lot of people love this burger. It's been on the menu for quite a while.
All right.
I just have never actually eaten it in its entirety like this, so. It's gonna be a first for me, and also my wife loves this thing.
My first bite was delicious.
It's cool, and I do see. I mean, so many people love this burger.
You get it now.
Yeah, I do get it, and
You're not a convert, but you get it.
Yes, yeah, and I'm trying to be very objective about it, and at least I got to give props to the fact that he did cook it a nice proper, like close to medium. So props to our cooks for
props
actually.
To the cooks.
Yeah.
8 full ounces, an entire half pound of a house ground custom burger blend, smoked bacon, a sweet and hot jalapeno jam, and a slathering of creamy peanut butter. Between the sweetness and the light heat of the jam, the saltiness of the peanut butter, and the smokiness of the bacon, the PB&J burger will please an eater willing to take a chance. Take a risk. It's a crazy idea, but it works.
I think it's a fun juxtaposition of flavors.
It is.
For that, I appreciate it.
It is.
And the whole textural thing, I'm really into with the Texas toast. But man, I see why people really like it. But I didn't get bacon on the last bite.
Oh, did you get bacon that time? Not many burgers done to this level of medium. This is good.
And I can wrap my brain around it a lot more once you get bacon into the equation, because the exact thing that was going through my head when I took that first bite, I'm like, man, I need some salt and some crunch to round it out. And then I bit bacon. And I should know exactly what's on all of this stuff.
But now you've experienced it, right?
And I should know exactly what's on all this stuff, but I don't. And I'm a bad brewer for it. But that bacon in the mix actually is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking good. Yeah.
The bacon actually is a weird thing that sort of ties it all together and makes it all make sense. But yeah, let this be a second thing that I am going to willfully retract my sentiment on. I'm sorry, peanut butter and jelly burger.
It's documented.
You're pretty all right.
I call this question the grill.
The grill.
It's typically a little tougher.
Oh man.
But to me, for brewing, it's about a bubble. Are we in a bubble? So craft brewing really took off 2008, 2010.
Yeah.
That's you start charting the number of craft breweries around the country. That's when it starts growing exponentially.
Sure.
And a lot of people have said beer drinking overall has not gained significantly in market share. Craft is only taken from the big three, really.
Sure.
And microbrewing or craft brewing is a bubble. So I don't know that I buy it in the sense that it's going to pop and be gone.
Yeah.
But I do think we're very fortunate to have as many breweries as we do right now.
Yeah.
Let's cheers to this,
all right,
and then get into this topic.
Oh man, yeah, because that's a humdinger of a question there.
Yeah. So, as long as you don't mind being on YouTube talking about the future and prognosticating.
Man, I love prognosticating. Come on. I have a lot of opinions. So
tell me about what we're experiencing right now. Let's start there.
Well, it's pretty wild because, what we're seeing is a lot of people kind of jumping into what they see as a very successful, avenue for money making. You see a lot of people that are willing to dump a bunch of money into what they see as being a very, very massive growth industry.
Yeah.
And obviously it's tapering off a fair amount, and especially in GR, you'll see a lot of people, for a number of reasons say that, the town is very saturated. The market is very saturated.
That's the word you hear all the time, saturated.
And, there's a certain amount of truth to it, I suppose, and what I think that's actually really interesting about that is that, sure, the market may be saturated with a lot of options, but what we're seeing now, I think, is that it's forcing an evolution of things. It's forcing an evolution of people of the craft, and forcing an evolution of the people, the purveyors of this beer, and the spaces they provide, and the ambiance and the actual product they provide, and it's forcing an evolution of it that is reasonable. But what used to fly in 2009, 10, whatever, as being acceptable, the same shit that came out in 2009, 10 when I was bartending at Hopcat.
Yeah.
If we saw the same shit fly out of some of these breweries now that we're starting out, they would go through the floor. No problem. No questions asked.
Is that the style of beer?
It isn't the style of beer, but I think.
Go ahead.
I think what it is it really is, it's down to the fact that we have a lot more savvy consumers. We have people that are a lot more well-versed in what quality beer is.
Quality. So it's a quality factor.
Yes.
And it's also, is it an experience factor? Like, people can say, I can go here and get food, I can go here and game,
It's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both,
Yeah.
And I think one of the hugest things, first and foremost, is that I think the most painful reality of the evolution of craft beer is going to be in quality.
Yeah.
Is that people are much more knowledgeable about what good beer is, and they are, because they have so many options, they're not going to go and just be like, okay, cool, well, this is a local brewery, whatever, I'm going to drink your beer and I'm going to enjoy it, yada, yada, yada. And even still, it isn't necessarily down to like the local factor. It's the fact that I think that some of these consumers now know that when they drink some of these beers that are coming out of breweries that may not necessarily be cranking out like top-notch, well-vetted product, that
right.
they know, they're a little bit more well-informed about off flavors and stuff that's being pushed out with poor technique and poor process and poor quality control, and the market isn't as patient or tolerant of that anymore.
The savvy consumer would reject corner cutting.
Yeah. Not even corner cutting, but just growth pains even.
Okay.
Because, whereas, in the early years when I was bartending at Hopcat, some of the stuff that we were pouring from some of the breweries that are like very well known now, they're doing amazingly and they are absolutely well established. But I mean, some of the stuff that came out of them in the early days, if they came out with that same stuff now, and even a small brewery came out with that stuff right now, there would be no room in the market for them. They would absolutely be shit on, and they'd be toast. And their reputation would be ruined, almost irreversibly so. But it's because people in those days, in those early days, they had so much more patience, and they had so much more, just willful. They were so much more willing to be tolerant of some of those growing pains and those little bit of those isms,
Yeah.
And they also weren't as adept at really quantifying like that this beer is off or this is not good beer,
That's interesting.
and some of the stuff that I had seen that we'd poured at Hopcat, in the early days was pretty fucking ridiculous.
Would you use the word vile? Absurd?
Yeah, it was wild, and there'd be some times that, there'd be some breweries that shall not be named that were cranking out some stuff that, we'd get a keg of it on and be like, fucking A.
How the hell
there
did we
is,
sell this?
we're gonna be spending a lot of time trying to get it to pour proper and behave.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff was really ambitious and it was really wild. And it was exciting beer, but it wasn't made with the kind of process and the kind of vetting and quality control that you see now, where they would people would do stuff with different adjuncts and fruit and this, that, and the other, and it wouldn't be as controlled, and you'd get a keg that would re-ferment, and you'd be trying to pour it on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and that thing would probably be like, in terms of like CO2 saturation, it'd be like probably well over 3.2 volumes of CO2, which is very high.
Yeah.
So for instance, like most lagers are like maybe on the high end 2.6, 2.7 volumes of CO2. Some like Hefeweizens are like, the higher twos. But some of this stuff would be like in the threes probably, and it just come out of the tap like a rocket.
So is that because re-fermentation produces carbon dioxide? Is that what it is?
Nowadays, like most breweries know, like that's not going to work out.
Sure.
You can't just like send a keg with unfermented fruit into a distributorship that's going to put it in a warm truck.
Yeah,
it's going to bring it 100 miles or so down south and serve it. same kind of shit doesn't fly, but I think that there's a very necessary evolution of a lot of the brewing aspect of things that I think is super important. And I think that people will say, oh yeah, it's saturated. But you know what? The reality of it is that the people that are not able to actually keep up with consistent quality product are going to be the ones that are going to suffer the most, because there certainly is, even though the market may be described as saturated, I still don't think that it is so saturated that there isn't room for people that are cranking out quality product and that are being innovative to actually be able to experience success.
That's a good nuanced point of view, because what it says is, while this bubble might have allowed some underskilled success, right? Breweries that didn't have the right technique, didn't have the right people, but it allowed them to still be successful. If things contract, they're going to be the ones with the subpar product that leave the market first.
Yeah, because of those, you know, and that's the thing is like, you know, it gets back to the point that we were talking about earlier when it's a steady state of growth. It's a steady state of self-reflection and analyzation of what you're doing. And being able to be self-critical and being able to really look at what you're doing and never just settle, not just say, okay, yeah, this is good enough, this is good enough, this is good enough.
That's a great point.
Because the moment that you think that you know every fucking thing that you're doing and that you are absolutely infallible is the moment that you're done. Because, you know, in any of these arts, whether it be culinary or, you know, brewing, you know, when you think that you don't have any room to grow or you don't have any room to improve or you think that you just have reached this apex, and I've seen a lot of breweries do that. I've seen a lot of really, really great breweries do that, and it makes me sad, but it is also like it's realistic, because if there's a huge part of me that has a I have a pretty serious loathing for people that just think that they've gotten it all down and that they don't have any room to learn. And because I think that right there is self-damning. You know, if you sit around and you think that, you know, you don't have to just keep improving or you don't have to keep tightening things up, and you think that, you know, it's a wrap because I'm ex-brewery and I've been doing this and everybody gives a shit about me, and you don't have to keep maintaining this,
that's when you die.
Yes, and I've seen this happen with a number of breweries, and you know, and it's a damn shame, because, but it also isn't, because it's like, well,
they died properly, so right, like they stopped evolving.
Yes,
in a way, it's survival of the fittest, right?
Yes,
like they stopped evolving, they stopped developing skill sets that would allow them to survive.
They felt like they felt like they just didn't have to care as much anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and you're watching a whole new crop of brewers come into the scene, and there's so many amazing breweries that are coming through that are putting a tremendous amount of passion and skill into what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they aren't stopping for shit. You know, they are constantly innovating. They're constantly developing and refining some of their technique, and they are doing things that, you know, it's hard if you're some of these older breweries that were able to get by in the days where, you know, people didn't care so much, and then you've got these newer breweries coming through, and they're, you know, technically very sound and principally very informed and well adapted, you know, or well adaptive types of brewers. It's a tough knock market for people like that. If you just wanted to sit, you know, you just want to sit on your fucking laurels and that's, you know, but the same can be said with any kind of art, you know, and it's like there's and it could almost be maybe summed down to like lack of passion or lack of love or and interest in what you're doing, because you know, you've got all these newer folks that are coming through, and they're not all young dudes, they're not all young people, and they're just people that are getting into a position where they can actually express their passion, be able to channel it into what they're doing, and they're doing great work. You know, I see every time we go to these guild fests, there's so many new breweries, and some of these people out there, they're just killing it, and they're bringing in such an intense amount of passion and technique and willingness to evolve to the craft that, you know, some of these people that have been around for a while that are just think like, okay, cool, well, I'm good, I was hot shit a minute, and then they're gonna get swallowed up because there's a lot of these people that are right there, they're ready, and it isn't an intentional thing. No, it's just them doing what they're doing.
like you said, passionate, ready to evolve. They're bringing new skill sets. To me, it's representative in some recent style development that we've seen become trendy.
Yeah.
The New England is kind of one of them, or this juicier IPA.
Yeah, for sure.
That became trendy in the last couple of years. Seltzers have become recently trendy, which starts to show a shift in the, less so in the brewer, but more so in the consumer.
Yeah.
So if you're unwilling to adapt to these changes, you can brew your IPA, you can brew your classics all day long, but it's ultimately about how many ounces are going to be consumed.
Right. Because when it comes down to like when we look at what we're going to brew and the choices that we make, we still do look at a lot of the sales statistics that we have in place. We monitor how our beer moves every single week that we start out the week. Every Monday we look at it. We look at what's moving, how fast is it moving, and we week by week we check it. We always know, and that is one of the key factors in deciding like what we brew and how we brew it. And it's tricky because there's sometimes that we'll look at things and be like, okay, well, we'll keep pushing this. For instance, like lagers, for instance.
We know
we'll keep pushing
people will trend this way,
Right, and so we'll keep pushing it, and it might not necessarily experience like immediate success, and we might not necessarily get that immediate gratification.
But you're thinking you're ahead of the trend or something.
Right, but we'll look at some of the things that at least we on a personal level can sort of identify with, but also too like when we look at some of the trends in consumptions and things that we see, we realize, because fortunately, both Bobby and I, we've had, over a decade into this whole craft beer thing. We've really been able to see a lot of how this stuff has evolved.
I'm sure.
And all the years that we spent at Hopcat was actually amazingly invaluable in terms of like, understanding how people consume beer and at least being able to be a little bit more objective about it. And I think that all the years that I spent bartending there put me in a different frame of mind that I don't think that maybe some of my colleagues in the brewing industry maybe might sit in.
That's a fantastic point. You look at that very notion across industry. Like if a person is cross-pollinated across different disciplines within the industry, so in your case, bartending and brewing, they are more likely to make good decisions for their end consumer than if they just had one stream of consciousness. Yeah,
because like at a service level, like I was able to see trends on a consumer level and also have like dialogue with people that are consuming beer directly, about what it is that they did like or they didn't like and understand things from that perspective. And what I was also, seeing quite often was that like, sure, what you might see in like, different beer publications or this side or the other might lead you to believe one way.
Right.
But on the ground level statistics, interacting with actual humans, selling them beer, and making sure that everybody was staying well hydrated, not hydrated.
I like hydrated. We can just call it that.
Well beveraged.
Until you well beveraged. I like that.
It allowed me to have a little bit less of maybe looking at it for less of a rose-tinted lenses,
Sure.
Much more realistic,
I think if your perspective is multifaceted, it's more likely to be close to reality than if you just have, like you said, one singular perspective as a brewer looking at data only.
Yeah. So,
because you're not having that conversation with the customer. At the front of house, you were saying, well, what do you like?
Right.
And at the front of house, you were probably also saying, oh, you didn't like that? Well, let me swap that out for it.
Yeah.
So it's on a sheet of paper, it's going to look like you sold 2 glasses. But as a front of house guy, you're like, I had to take this one away because they didn't like it.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing that I think was a really wonderful blessing about being able to spend all that time behind the bar at Hopcat was that
that's huge.
It gave a very different take on that, but at the end of the day, it's like, do I think that the bubble is going to burst? It will eventually. I think it will eventually, but I think that there is so much room for people that are really able to put a lot of love and craft into what they're doing, and I think that there is going to be some growing pains, definitely and surely.
Right.
But
quality dominates.
It will, and people are going to have to kind of roll with things, and they're going to have to roll with the times.
I think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
I think it's unanswerable in a lot of ways,
right?
Because
if you could answer that question, you'd be probably in a position to make an insane amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Creston Breweries first opened,
Creston's.
People were like, oh god, another brewery. Oh my god,
on the west side.
It's too saturated. Yada yada yada. And I mean, definitely proved that wrong because Scott is a friend of mine. He's a guy that actually he and I used to work together at Hopcat years ago. And they're doing phenomenal beer. They're doing great stuff. They're actually doing a lot of really cool stuff in terms of engaging community and providing a really wonderful space. They got cool events. I mean, they're taking a number of different angles and they're working it. And they're providing not only like good community engagement, but also creating really, really good beer. I think Scott's making some of the best IPAs in town. I'm sorry to everybody else. He's making great beer.
We're fortunate. I mean, we live in Grand Rapids has an obscene amount of good breweries.
Yeah, and he is in like Bob and I went there. We had some like equipment failure, and we ended up having to we had fun with it. We were able to go around town and like visit some breweries and be like, okay, who do we want to get beer from? Because we had some taps to fill up, and we went over there and I was drinking some of those IPAs. I'm like, what are you doing?
With Creston,
what are you doing?
I mean, you have Quimby, Bocanon, their Sweet Street, they've got some good beers.
He makes some really fucking awesome, super solid, clean, good beer. When they first set to open, everybody was talking all this like, oh, the market's saturated.
A lot of shit about them, yeah.
Not even about them, but just about the market.
Just about the market as a whole.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, that's one of the things I first think of when people are talking about, oh my god, the market's saturated. No, it's obviously not that saturated.
Creston walked in and did amazing.
Yeah, he did. They make great beer, and people are super happy to go and support them. But like even beyond that, they're just doing a great thing with a part of town that's kind of been a little bit sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
That little north side, Creston, the Creston area is it's been kind of underutilized, and they're able to bring something into there.
Underserved in a lot of ways. Yeah.
And I think that's another part of it too, is that if you get some of these breweries that come into these spaces, they look at it in a little bit of a different sense of like, well, I'm just gonna come here, I'm just gonna sell beer and make money. And I think that in the craft beer community, people recognize they can smell the authenticity behind that kind of action.
That's a great phrase.
And I think that's one of the things in the craft beer industry that I think is also separating a lot of the people that are not going to do well from the people that are going to do well, is that the authenticity in action and the intention behind what you do.
Yeah.
And whether or not you really love what you're doing, if you're doing it for the right reason, or if you believe in it, and I think that they're a perfect example of they believe in what they're doing. They came in there with the idea of engaging community and participating in making an area and a community better.
Yep.
And it's tangible. People feel it and they understand that. And I think in other parts of this town, I think you'll see that if the breweries are able to actually create some sort of meaningful and tangible authenticity to what they're doing, and be able to convey the love and passion behind what they're doing, and their willingness to be able to build something beyond just selling beer.
Yes.
That also I think that's going to play a tremendous role in whether or not breweries are successful beyond just making good beers.
This is a seared experiment.
All right.
We've never done this before with any of our previous 4 guests, I guess. But it's basically an open question. What have you been thinking about? What's been bothering you? What's inspiring you? What's out there that you're like, I don't understand, or I love this fucking thing, and I want to know more about it. So it's an open question.
Oh man, it's a loaded damn question.
It's open.
Start with the first one. What's the first one?
So there's, what do you enjoy? What are you thinking about?
What am I thinking about? Lately what I've been thinking about, I really just wanted to go to the UP and bring a fucking tent and just disconnect from a lot of shit.
Set your phone in the lower peninsula.
Nothing against anybody or anything.
Sure.
It's just, lately that's honestly one of the things I've been thinking about is just I just want to go hang out in a bunch of trees and be able to walk as slow as I want.
Yes.
And if I want to just hang out next to a babbling brook.
Yes.
And just lay there for like a fucking hour, I can do it.
I like that. I'm not laughing because I think it sounds extraordinary. I'm laughing because, holy fuck, that sounds perfect.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about probably the most lately is the, just being able to disconnect from things. And it's no offense to the things that I'm surrounded by.
Sure.
It's
you have good things.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful things, but I think these days we're so damn connected, for better or worse, that sometimes it's not this world that we live in right now. It's not something that I don't think we've had enough time to really evolve to being able to really be. By default adjusted and adapted to, because this isn't like how we've evolved for the last thousands of years to be able to be a part of, But
technology has out-evolved us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
If you look at what it was like to navigate to a location when we were kids, it was like, it's the third oak.
There's a huge part of me that misses the simplicity of that.
Yeah.
But also too, I miss the side adventures and all the things that could happen from that, because
the randomness.
Yes, because these days I think that now that people are so used to being able to be so specifically guided and directed in everything that they do, that there isn't that sort of resignation of allowing yourself to just be a part of a journey that there was before.
I'm at the whim of how well I've interpreted these directions.
Yeah, but even still, though, you're only culpable for knowing so much.
Yeah.
And now there is no forgiveness, because you have the entire information of the entirety of the world at your fingertips. So if you don't get to Grandma's house on time, and
how dare you?
Yeah, you fucked up.
You knew the traffic.
Right. You can't say, look, Uncle Teddy gave me the wrong directions. It's just,
he said the third oak, it was the second oak.
Yeah, and then you'd also don't have the wonderful odd experiences of maybe going through some weird ass town like Hesperia or some shit,
Hesperia.
And then wandering through there and having to ask some old chum on the stoop where the hell you should be going.
Yeah, stopping at the bar, not only to grab some sort of light beer, but also to find out where you need to go.
There's that, like, what I've been thinking about most lately is actually the level of connection that we have.
It's overwhelming.
And whether or not it's really beneficial, or whether we really need to be doing this.
Yeah. So that's also something that has changed social dynamics, right? So not only are you connected to this person that you live with, but now you have instant access to all your friends, all your coworkers, everyone that you've interacted with on a almost innocent basis at an event or something like that. They can all reach you instantly.
Yeah, I get to see all their either really awesome or super shitty fucking opinions about the most insignificant stuff.
Yeah, instantly. There's no delay.
Some of it's amazing, like something like a lot of my friends are super humorous and they got jokes for days, and and I love their take on things. So sometimes people's opinions on some of this shit, dude, I met you one time, in a damn near blackout after a fucking Fish show. I don't need to keep in touch with you every day.
I was on autopilot. I don't need to know what you're doing. Yeah.
That's the one thing that's actually been really that I've been thinking about the most is connectivity. And really how much substance there really is to a lot of the interactions that we go through in an ordinary day. And the rapid speed by which we're approaching life, but it seems as if we're running for nothing,
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about connectivity, because one of the intents for this show was breaking bread, literally sitting down and having a conversation over food.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of different ways we could do that. We talked about the mukbang, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
However you say
mukbang. I don't even know, man.
So we could have done something very fast paced like that.
Right.
We could have done something gimmicky like play with puppies and have a conversation.
Yeah.
But we chose pretty early on in the creation of this to say we're going to do something exceedingly old school in that we're just going to sit down for a meal with someone.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the shit they're interested in.
And that's why I like it. That's the thing that I think when I first when you approached me via email
I'm
about
not
it.
compliment fishing, just so you
No,
know.
but I mean but the reality of it is that because I'd gone through those things and I was like, okay, this is actually interesting because of the fact that I feel like a lot of times, so often these days, I feel like depth and nuance are sacrificed for impact.
Yeah, good point. Especially with influencers and shit like that. And
really like the actual like content of a lot of humanity is sort of is kicked to the side for impact.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you see it proliferating in so many aspects of humanity these days because of the fact that content and depth are not emphasized anymore.
Untapped is actually a great example of that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, well, I feel like a lot of times, in some of these instances when people encounter these things and all these, objects in people and interactions, that there's so much superficiality to it. There's just such a lack of depth.
Yeah, lack of depth.
Because what we're basically doing is we're proliferating a culture and an ideology that values the impact over depth, because there is no prioritization of like actual, of real meaningful interaction with the things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Anything that's instantly impactful is usually hyper-planned, hyper-edited.
Yeah.
And this is a lot more, we aim for real, right? Like we cut it so we don't cut a lot of the conversation. Yeah. I mean, we cut when you call me a fucker and when you like all that shit. No. But seriously, like the more genuine it is, I think the better it is. And that's not often the most impactful component.
Right. But I think these days too, I feel like a lot of modern culture really incentivizes disingenuous representations of things that are around you.
It gets clicks, right?
Yes. And that's what's, and that is the kind of stuff that also goes hand in hand with the connectivity that, and the cyber culture and the proliferation of all this connectivity. But what does it really amount to at the end of the day?
Yeah.
How substantial is it really that, a lot of these conversations that take place on the internet, all this fucking stuff that, so-and-so posts this article or this article, all this like, sort of like armchair activism, and things like that. And it's just like, there's so many beautiful aspects to some of that stuff, but there's also so much just. It's just this. It's like trying to construct a knight out of fucking thin paper. Yeah, and it's not much. It may look strong and big and meaningful, like it's powerful, like it can do something. But it's paper thin. It does not actually have any strength behind it. It doesn't have any.
That's a good point.
Actual substance, and that's something that I'm always thinking about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad we did this open question because I could have never predicted where that was going to go.
So, tangential conversations, I told you, man. You could talk about
whatever, aliens,
one thing and go down another fucking trail entirely. But
I like it. So the last question is easy. It's basically, what's next for Ernie? What's next for GRBC? What's next for brewing? Like you can choose any one of those, or you can talk about all of them. But I'd like to know. This is like we call it the sizzle.
Yeah.
Like tell us what's coming up. What do you guys got in the fermenter?
Yeah.
What are you experimenting with personally? You can tell us about any of that.
Yeah, in a brewery level, what are we really doing? We've had fun with Seltzer recently. That's been actually a pretty fun thing.
Seltzer, right?
Seltzer, yeah. We've actually had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah.
Much to the chagrin of some people in the beer community.
Sure.
Also, I mean...
they pissed and moaned about sports ball too, right?
They pissed and moaned about a lot of things, you know. At the end of the day, I just still laugh about it. But yeah, we've had fun with that. And, and a few brewers around here have done a really good job of also doing it. Like, my friend Tom Payne over at Two Guys, actually, he was one of the first guys that did Seltzer around here. And usually he's pretty like he's pretty tight about stuff. Like, he's very traditionalist, and we ran into him at the Guild Fest earlier this year, and he was doing a seltzer, and we'd kind of chatted about it, and we'd sort of already had like a loose baseline for what we wanted to do, and then we were chatting with him about it, and he more or less confirmed that what we were going to do was about what they were doing, and so credit to you, T-Pain. But yeah, he's been doing also a lot of other really awesome stuff too. Beyond that, I need to go there and try his food, but I haven't.
2 guys, you said? 2?
Yeah, but oh my God, in the pictures, and I already know him. He's the kind of dude, he and his wife are super awesome people, and I already know, like, they're taking pictures of the food, and it's as good as it looks. So I believe it.
I know.
I got to get over there. Get over there. But yeah, he provided us some much needed confirmation when we first got into the whole seltzer thing. But yeah,
which I think, not to reemphasize this point too much, but if GRBC would have said we're going to market with the seltzer to a lot of craft brewery purists, they would have been like, "Are you insane?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah, we wouldn't have cared anyway. We would just be like, we're just going to make it anyway.
You guys do you. Yeah.
We're going to be like, well, we're just going to make it anyway. I don't know. You'll figure out how to sell it.
But it's become popular. It's become a current trend.
Yeah.
You have Clear Coast. You have White Claws, obviously the quintessential seltzer at this point.
Yeah, the White Claw mango is the best. Just for anybody wondering.
I like lime.
Oh,
really? The lime's good.
Oh my. I cannot even believe you just fucking said that.
I'm sorry. I generally don't like lime. I just said my Canadian. I'm sorry. I'm not even Canadian.
I know. I'm just super surprised at you. I'm just super surprised. I think
the lime's actually good.
Yeah.
Do we have any votes off screen? White Claw pineapple.
Maybe pineapple.
Mango. Oh, we have another mango.
Mango's the shit though. Mango's that shit. Yeah. So I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of brewing. What about you?
So we've been doing that. What else do we have in terms of brewery stuff? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting, I guess, at a point in life where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
You're brewing beer.
At 41, you would think I'd have it all sorted out, but maybe I'm going to have a midlife crisis. I'm going to buy a Corvette.
Do you actually think our parents had it sorted out at 41?
I don't know. Sometimes I still feel like a young kid, and I like I was hanging out with my cousin the other day, and he's in his late 30s, but when I was working with him, he and my dad and I were doing some stuff at my grandma's house, and it's just wild because, when I was working with him and I was looking at him, I still look at him as if he's like my younger cousin, as if he's a child. Yeah. But if I step back from it and I look at it in a different context and sort of remove myself from it, I look at it and I'm like, he's a grown man.
That's true.
He was a Marine. I mean, he's a veteran. He did 2 tours, or I don't know how many tours he did, but he's gone through some shit. Yeah. But I still look at him very much as a young man, as a child almost, because he was, a number of years younger than me, and And then I remove myself, and I'm like, it's wild. He's a grown man. Like any other kids would come around here and be like, you're old.
Yeah.
But it's pretty wild that even at 41, I still feel like a lot of the people that I grew up with were still kids.
Yeah, I think
we're still young.
I think that's a good thing, though. You don't want to lose that. You said you have 3 dogs.
Yep.
Tell me about the dogs.
So my wife has 2 dachshunds.
Gotcha.
That's previous to our marriage.
Yeah.
But they're crazy ass dogs. Well, no, actually, one's crazy, one's very sane, very, very wonderful dog.
What's the third one we got?
And then we have an American Bulldog, and she's also an asshole.
Okay.
So that was we got together, but she's a nut.
Dachshunds and bulldogs.
Yeah, she's a nut. So they don't get along very well.
No.
Bulldog's an asshole, and the dachshunds they're old. They just want to chill.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with a whole lot of crap. And the bulldog is still very much like, who's the boss around here?
Right.
Who's the boss? I want to show you the boss.
Is it like the smush face bulldog?
Yeah, she's a standard American bulldog. So she's not as squished as the ones that you're thinking of. Yeah, she's she'd look more like a pit bull.
Okay, more like a pit.
Yeah.
Big, but it's got the burly kind of look.
Oh yeah, stands like she's ready to take down a full cow.
Has this look?
Yeah.
All of you.
Pretty much. Exactly that. Exactly that.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to say thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, man.
The big part of it for me was to dissect the creation of this liquid, and I think we did that. I think we did that more.
I hope so.
We did.
I think it's fun to have a scenario like this because I think a lot of times, like when you do really short interviews or things like that, it's like there's so much more fun conversation that comes out of this.
I appreciate you getting in depth and talking nerdy with us.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks a lot, Ernie.
Oh, cheers,
you are
brother.
a remarkable person.
You are as well.
Awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for inviting me, man.
Yeah, take care.
Why the fuck would you put a pickle on it?
Who does this?
Why the fuck would you put it on the plate?
It's a pickle on the plate.
It's not a very great decoration.